everybody, this is Josh Runquist for Heavy Debriefings, about to talk about my top 10 albums of August 2023. If this is your first time here, very short rules here. Everything's in alphabetical order, just my top 10 albums. There's much more that could have made the cut for August, but unfortunately did not. I'll briefly describe them, and hopefully you'll find at least one new album to check out from 2023 in the heavy world. Let's begin. Starting things off, we have the sophomore album from Aeonic Impulse with Beyond the Light. This did take quite a bit of time to be able to get out there, with 7 years in between albums, lineup changes, and of course just life happening in between. But I'm so happy to see these guys have put out their sophomore album, and it's easily some of the best work the band has ever done. A very great mix of prog and dark metal with very hard-hitting lyrics and really cool breakdowns, the addition of some screaming this time around, which I was not expecting, but was pretty blown away the first time I heard it. The band is really coming in full form here, and I love what they're doing. Earlier this year, they released some covers of Alice in Chains, The Cure, and Rage Against the Machine, which kinda shows what the band is all about, but I don't think it gives everything away. Of course, the dark prog is still in full contact, but you hear some great heavy breakdowns like you would hear in Rage Against the Machine, you would hear some nice heavy riffs like you would hear in Alice in Chains, and of course that dark sense that goes on with The Cure. And that particular love song by The Cure features a family friend of mine, Alicia Mitchell, which is really cool to see her vocal talents on display with a band like this. But when it comes to Beyond the Light, this is some fantastic stuff, and I can't wait to see where they go from here. I hope they're in it for the long run this time, because I've missed them over the years, and I'm so happy they're back. Next up, we have Cyra with the Vertigo Trigger. And the band's third album is really where I feel the band has landed, and they truly found the sound that they've wanted to find all of this time. It's that perfect blend of modern metal and hard rock fused together. And of course, you're going to hear some melodeath moments, you're going to hear some power metal moments, you're going to hear a little bit of the more mainstream modern pop metal kind of sound. That's going to happen considering who's a part of the band. But the band has really walked that fine line between metal and rock perfectly on this album, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Of course, again, like I mentioned, there's nods to like early In Flames, there's some Amaranth in there. I mean, that's not going to go away with the members of the band. But finding this edge of being able to find very commercial sounding but very, very heavy songs at the same time, it's just a perfect blend for the band, and I can't wait to see where the band is going to be able to go on this album run, because if this catches on the way that I want it to, this should be on Top 40 Rock Radio here in the US, and I really hope that'll happen this time. Next up is Exmortis with Necrophony, and I'm so happy these guys are back with a brand new album. Of course, some lineup changes happened, and of course, life happened over the last several years, but this album has really shined through the lights, and it might be their darkest, heaviest, and most sophisticated album to date. Of course, like the album name suggests, it is a dark, symphonic album, but it is that orchestrated, neoclassical thrash and death metal that you love from Exmortis. Just a little more sophisticated, but also, when you flip the coin, it is some of their most brutal stuff that they've ever put out. And of course, with the last few years the way that it has been, how could it not be? And I'm so thankful for an album like this, because it really fit the needs of what I needed personally right now. Exmortis has always done that throughout all of their albums, just that perfect blend of, if Yngwie Malmsteen wanted to create neoclassical thrash and death metal, which is something you'll never see, but Exmortis really carries that torch and makes it their own. And if that sounds exciting to you, easily start with this album and go backwards from here. You're going to find some amazing material if you check out Exmortis, especially if this is your first time. Next up, we have the almighty Death Clock with an album I never thought would see the light of day, Death Album 4. And I'm so thankful that this album has come out, because one, I've loved Death Clock since day one. This is a band, a show. Brandon Small is someone that I truly, truly appreciate, and just the overall universe, what they've done for death metal and metal in general. I will always have a love and appreciation for everything Death Clock and Metalocalypse. With the brand new final movie out now, although I have not seen it yet, wish I have, but I have been able to check out Death Album 4 for quite a bit of time, and I can easily say without a shadow of a doubt, even if people don't check this out either because they're past Deathclock, or they're sick of Deathclock, or they never got into Deathclock, are truly missing out, because this is the best Deathclock album. And if this is the final one, they ended on the perfect note. Every song on this album absolutely rules. It's funny when you pay attention to the lyrics, but the music is so brutal, so sophisticated at the same time. Of course, that happens when Brendan Small is an artist of Juilliard, and you have Gene Hoglan and the rest of the company being able to accompany him in writing some of the most brutal melodic death metal this side of the comedy verse. I love everything that's going on here. Easily one of the best death metal albums of the year, and if you don't check it out, for whatever reason it is, you are truly, once again, missing out. Next, we have Horrendous with Ontological Mysterium, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, this is their best album ever. And I can really equate that to one particular thing. The production is actually listenable this time. Now, I do love every single Horrendous album. They really capture that early death sound. They didn't get into the more progressive, blackened kind of death metal that was on the last two albums, Symbolic and The Sound of Perseverance, yet. But they have tackled that early scream, bloody gore, leprosy, spiritual healing, human. It's just so great to be able to see those albums represented in a way that is brand new. It's inspired, but it doesn't take everything. On this particular album, they expand their wings to more than just death. I hear elements of atheist, I hear elements of cynic, I hear elements of pestilence, and other good flavorings that really go in well with the band. Of course, it still has that great 90s technical progressive death metal sound that I love so very, very much, but the sound is actually better this time, and you can hear every single note, you can hear every single growl and scream, you can hear every single drum note, the way an album should be. It's 2023, there's no excuses for that anymore, unless you're doing it for stylistic reasons, which, but regardless of any of that, the musicality, the production, the songwriting, everything about this album just simply rules. And this is easily one of the best death metal albums of 2023 that is not Deathclock. Seriously, you need to check this thing out. And now for something completely different. It is Noveria with Gates of the Underworld. And with a title like that, you would think it would kind of match up with like Deathclock or Horrendous, but you would be wrong. It is much more in the line of Symphony X or Pagan's Mind or DGM. This is some fantastic progressive power metal. And on this particular album, they decided to turn things just a little bit different with down-tuning their guitars, playing some 7 and 8 strings, and really showcasing more of that modern progressive metalcore sound, which seems odd on paper, but they really don't fall into the gent trends of like Periphery or Polyphia or Animals as Leaders. It just uses it as a flavoring. It's not the overall sound of the band. That progressive power metal sound is in full assault here. And again, if you love Symphony X, if you love Pagan's Mind, obviously this band was started off with members of DGM, so if you love them, you're going to find something to really appreciate with Noveria. This is a very standout album for the genre this year, and I hope you check it out because it deserves all the love and affection you can give it. Next up is a band that has taken the metal internet world by storm this year in 2023. The band Orbit Culture with their album Descent, and this thing is incredible. Whether you love melodic death metal, whether you love groove metal, whether you love some symphonic moments, whether you love orchestral moments, whether you love Metallica, there's something for you on this album. All you need to do is look at one of their biggest singles off of this album from the inside, and it basically gives you everything that you need to know about the band without giving away everything about the band. It's got a nice dancey beat behind it, it's got some heavy grooves and breakdowns, a very catchy Metallica-esque chorus that is quite the sing-along, and it just goes into some very unexplored territory for something that is this kind of popular on the internet right now. And of course, when it hits with the right orchestration and symphonics, it just works out perfectly. And it's also a reason why backing tracks work live, but that's a debate for a different time. Anyways, for Descent, this is everything that I love about a band like this, and I can't wait to see what they do next. If you're checking out this video, you very well may be familiar with Orbit Culture, but if you haven't, seriously, give them a shot. Next up is Ringworm with Seeing Through Fire. Ringworm is that perfect anger band for me. I usually don't get too angry most of the time. Most of the time I'm defeated or depressed or sad. But when I do have those anger moments, when I just want to destroy everything around me, Ringworm is the perfect soundtrack for it. It's just hate-filled. It is just fueled by the anger of the world and everything around us. When my brother died in 2019, the song I Want to Tear the World Apart was the perfect soundtrack. And if you don't know my story, it is quite different than why you would think that would be my song. But I discussed that in the Something Gives series, which you should also check out here on my YouTube channel. But getting back into this album, it is everything that I love about Ringworm. The anger, the intensity, the power, the fact that they put a lot of extreme metal bands to shame with their ferocity is something to really, truly behold. And of course, Human Furnace has one of the most aggressive voices in all of music. Seriously. This is an album that is chaotic, it slows down right in the best parts possible, it's got breakdowns aplenty, it's got pure aggression, grind beats, double bass, everything that you would want in a metallic, hardcore sound. And if you just need something for a violent thrash, whatever that reason may be, Ringworm is the band for you. And Seeing Through Fire, especially if you've never checked out the band before, is a perfect starting point. Up next, we have one of my favorite debut albums of 2023 from Tegmentum with Evolvement. And for the progressive death metal fan in me, I couldn't ask for anything more off of this album. Whether you love the atmospheric stuff of a band like Cynic, whether you love the technical display of progressive death metal in a band like The Faceless, or if you love something that's a bit more ethereal and sad, much like a band like Tomorrow, which just so happened to put out my favorite album of last year, which you should go ahead and check out that 35-part series of my top 10 albums of every year I've been alive from 1988 to 2022. But back to this one here, it's progressive death metal aplenty with just the right amount of technical and brutal moments, and so much great ethereal atmospheric moments as well. So no matter your love of progressive death metal, there is something for you to love here. And considering the lineup that's a part of this band, too many great names to mention, you just need to check this out for yourself. This is something that just came as an absolute shock to me. I am so thankful I got the promo for this so I get to sit down and really check this out. Seriously, if you're a progressive death metal fan, you are doing yourself a huge disservice by not checking this thing out. And finally, to end things on a very sad note, it is the band Urn with A Feast on Sorrow. Funny enough, I don't have any doom metal on this list for August 2023, but this is the closest thing to doom metal that did make the list, and it totally fits the mold. The sophomore album from this UK outfit is one of the darkest albums that you're going to hear in 2023. It's a real argument for what is the darkest, but this has a great track record to be the saddest album of 2023. It is all about the deterioration of the mind, body, and soul, and what you are left with if you see someone suffer that way or if it's happening to you yourself. And sadly, if we live long enough, that's going to happen to all of us. The mind goes away, the body goes away, the soul goes away. And if it doesn't happen to us, if we die tragically early, we know someone who has or will. And the music just perfectly matches that up. Whether it gets into blast beats, whether it gets into full-on, almost funeral doom style stuff going on here, and everything in between. The music just matches the lyrics so perfectly, and vice versa. And when you got Joe from Gojira being able to help produce and record this album at his studio, it has that great full sound that you would expect from a Gojira album, but a completely different band. Urn is one of the best uprising UK metal bands out there, and you should really check them out if you like things that are in the style of sludge, progressive, dark, doom, metalcore, hardcore. Like, there's so many genres this band is attached to, it's really hard to categorize them. So instead of me trying to fully describe it for you, why don't you just check this one out yourself if you're ready for an album that will make you cry lyrically, but make you bang your head musically. And there you go, folks, my top 10 albums of August 2023. What do you think? What did I leave off? What did I miss? Did you find any new discoveries? Do you just want to crap on me for my own personal opinion? Let me know all that down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that stuff so you keep seeing these videos regularly. I'm hopefully at some point going to be doing this on a weekly basis. That's probably going to be happening in 2024. And other programming notes, of course, my 35-part series, which I alluded to earlier, has concluded as of last week to cap off the first 34 years of my life. So 35 onwards, I'm not sure what's going on yet, but if you want to continue to see weekly content, I do have the Heavy Debriefings podcast up on YouTube and anywhere that you check out podcasts. We're 6 episodes in, and hopefully you'll enjoy what's going on. And one thing that might sell you on it, it's not just me on the show. Wink wink, nudge nudge. But until the top 10 albums of September 2023, the next Heavy Debriefings podcast, the next interview, or any other type of video that I'll put up here on the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel. For Heavy Debriefings, Josh Runk was saying, see ya.